what you're seeing is this individual over here to the left. I'm colorblind. I think he's wearing a red or brown shirt. He's got the crowd following him. This is actually an Ebola patient. This basically shows you the breakdown, a breakdown of society, a breakdown in how they're handling Ebola. This individual's walking around, they're all nervous. Hazmat has come there to try to take control. But again, it puts into perspective what we're dealing with in terms of control of this virus over in Africa. And again, this is a possibility. CDC just came out, which I'll cover in a second, basically stating that this could be airborne. Obviously, there's issues if you got these guys all in hazmat all around them. Yet, within feet are people without hazmat. They have to forcibly take this guy away. He was hungry. He was looking for food. And he just essentially broke out of the clinic. You'll see him in a second. They're going to forcibly throw him into the truck. Is this what's coming to America soon? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Forcibly being detained. Scary situation there, folks. And will that be coming to the streets of America soon? That's the question we all have to ask ourselves. What are your thoughts on it, folks? You saw it there. That's over in Liberia, and the situation's not getting any better. I'm starting to get more and more concerned about it, and you're just not hearing enough on national news covering the issues or the concerns that are out there with this virus, this epidemic. It's in West Africa now. It has the potential to alter history, and as any plague ever has. It's mutated over a couple hundred times. There is concern now that it's airborne, even though people laughed at the conspiracy people like Alex Jones when he initially came out with that story. Now major media is saying, oh, he's right, because the CDC is now saying it, and the other outlets, the WHO. There's been more than 4,300 cases that they know of. Remember, this thing sits dormant for about 21 hours, so there could be a lot more. Some people suspect that it's being played down, and there are a lot more. Over 2,300 deaths. It was just 2,000, I think, last week. And this is in the past 6 months, so it's accelerating. The WHO has warned that by early October, there may be thousands of new cases per week in Liberia, Sierra Leone, Ghana, and Nigeria because of situations like this where the individual gets out. And this is the first time, folks. I don't know if you remember me reporting. It was a couple weeks ago. And essentially, a bunch of the individuals within the city ransacked this one quarantined area. About 30 Ebola victims escaped into the capital, which has about 1 million residents. The individuals also stole blood-soaked clothing and all kinds of other stuff from there, which could potentially spread the disease even further. So we're basically in uncharted waters here, folks. Mother Nature is the only force in charge of this crisis at this time, nobody else. And I'm really starting to get concerned about what could happen if it makes its way here. There's a couple possibilities here. One is that the Ebola virus spreads from Africa to mega cities and other regions and develops into a world breakout. It's very different than the past 19 that occurred in Africa over the past 40 years. And there's a lot more concern with this one. The second possibility is one that the virologists put out. About 5 million deaths coming from it because it is airborne. This is a world-recognized virologist. But viruses like Ebola are notoriously sloppy in replicating, meaning the virus enters into one person may be genetically different from the virus that enters into the next. They're mutating. And these mutations occur, it will mean that just breathing could put you at risk. And a lot of people are now out there saying that. But why is the public afraid to discuss it? Why has, I've said this 100 times. Major media never really said anything until about the 100 deaths. And then 1,000, they started being more vocal. And then people started coming down saying, you guys are fear-mongering. Then you really haven't heard much from them. And that's because they don't want to be accused of yelling fire in a crowded theater. But this risk, I'm telling you, this risk is real. So what do we do or not do? We need someone to take over the position of command and control. These countries are out of control and they don't know how to deal with this situation. We probably need the United Nations in there. They're the only international organization that can direct an immense amount of medical, public health, and humanitarian aid. Maybe a Security Council resolution to give the United Nations total responsibility for controlling the outbreak. But then are you opening up the door so that the United Nations can come over here and take control of the outbreak here in the United States? We don't want that. So do we limit it? And will that even be something considered? Many private airlines are even refusing to fly into these affected countries. But how can you blame them? We have United Nations. They're in there. Hopefully they're providing the WHO with the recommended beds for thousands of people. And we all have to remember, folks, the Ebola isn't a West Africa only problem. Tens of thousands of people die there each year from diseases like AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis. This stuff is going to spread. Going to spread, and it's about a humanitarianism. It's about self-interest. If we wait for vaccines or new drugs to end this epidemic, we may be putting several million people at risk, and we don't want that, folks. We don't want that. So we need to look at our options. What can we do? The president has decided he's going to announce it sometime, I think today, to assign 3,000 military personnel there to fight Ebola. Again, at a significant cost to the taxpayers, the U.S. taxpayers. Do we want our military people there? Do we want to bring back these 4 Americans that are back here? Somebody brought up the case yesterday. I think it was on Alex Jones. His dad's a doctor, and he brought up, you know what? A lot of times what happens is you'll get these viruses. You'll be cured, like these 2 or 3 doctors have been. But then the virus is actually dormant, and it can come back out, and you can spread the disease. Think about it. So he's going to announce that he's got 3,000 military people going there. He's requesting $500 million in contingency funds to support this effort. I don't know if I'm a fan of that, folks. I think it needs to be contained. I think we need to do something about it. I don't know if I want to put American lives in jeopardy there. I don't know if $500 million will be better spent over here defending for its onslaught here, because I don't think going there and spending the $500 million will do much, unfortunately. Administration officials said the U.S. will help to provide medical and logistical support in these overwhelmed areas. The new initiative will provide 500 healthcare workers a week. They'll put up a bunch of facilities, about 17 of them with 100 beds in each. They'll set up a joint command in Monrovia, Libya, which is the capital, and coordinate international efforts with others there. What are your thoughts on that? The officials told AP that it would take up to 2 weeks for the U.S. to forces to get on the ground there. Medics, corpsmen, not really trained, ill-trained to handle the situation. Obama's decision to enlist the defense into responding to the Ebola breakout has raised this concern to a whole new level. A whole new level, folks, and we should be concerned that our military folks are going in there, that Americans are going into this dire situation. I just hope it hasn't already made its way here. I hope it doesn't make its way here, but I'm starting to really get concerned about this virus. All right, this is the Francesco Abbruzzino Show. This is Frankie. That was my opening line there with Ebola. Let's see. This is a one-man operation. I do all the research, the editing, the technical aspect, the website, every single aspect of it. Been doing it for free for about 5 years. Media end of it, locally primarily. Got into international, national stuff about a year ago, doing that for free. Started this in December, and all out there to try to educate, inspire, and change or affect change with many of you out there. It's turned out to be a nice gig. Now I got a radio show on Saturdays, which I also broadcast on here. Today, I will be on the radio, and will be my first live radio shot, and it will be my first national syndication. So I'll be throughout the nation. You can catch that at philsgang.com, where I'll be talking about issues probably impacting the economy more or less. Now, let's take a quick commercial break, and I'll be right back. 1-800-PET-MEDS. Yes, get your pet essentials, your medicines, your collars, everything you need online. And guess what? You'll be supporting the operations of this great station, the Uncensored Report. So go to my website, click on the icon for 1-800-PET-MEDS, and help us continue the information war that's going on out there. Hey everybody, have you thought about fluoride, how it's dumbing us down? Why don't you give Fluoride Shield a try? Or how about Survival Shield to help you get the iodine that's been taken out of our salts? Give both of these products a try. Just go to theroguerat.com or theuncensoredreport.com. Click on my shop area and click on the InfoWars icon. It'll give credit to the operation and help us continue to get the message out there. Have a great day. All right, folks, and we're back. Get rid of that echo. Okay, now what could we do? What would a show be like nowadays without conversing or discussing ISIS? It's on everybody's mind, ISIS. How Obama is going to funnel millions upon billions of dollars legally this time instead of illegally like he has been through the CIA, through countries like Turkey and funneling. Well, I've covered everything there. Now, here's the issue. He wants to arm the moderate Syrians, and I covered this to a T yesterday. These are the same moderates that just signed a pact with ISIS saying that they will not combat each other, that they have an equal agenda, which is to bring down the Syrian government. So, Obama plans on funneling, I think 500 million, whatever the number is, over to this moderate ISIS, the Syrian Free Army, I think it is, or Free Syrian Army. He says it's a good thing. Even though they've come out, they've said, hey, we're working hand in hand with ISIS, with Al-Qaeda, with al-Nusra. We're going to share our funding with them. We share our weapons with them. We share our training and knowledge with them. Obama has elected to give them the money so that he can come in and fight the group he's given the money to, ISIS. Does any of this make sense, folks? Or is this, in fact, a de facto way to get in there and start a war with Syria? He hasn't asked for permission. He hasn't been given it, and he won't be given it from Syria to fly over their zone, which is another question we have to ask ourselves about the international laws here. Will attacking ISIS turn Syria into a failed state? That's what USA Today warned. To launch strikes against ISIS in Iraq and Syria will reduce them into a failed state. More than likely, because what the thought is out there that Obama's using this as a way to get in there and attack Syria. Because the groups he was funding, the rebels, could not do the job. The turmoil over in Libya was a cautionary tale as the United States enlists the help of moderate Syrian rebels to defeat radical Islam and Assad. We basically did the same thing in Syria, Libya, and look at that place now. In fact, the United States, Britain, and Israel have colluded for years to turn the Middle East into a collection of failed states unable to rise above ethnic and tribal conflicts. And let's not forget about Saudi Arabia in that whole big picture. The West has used a divide and rule formula in the Middle East for nearly a century. Great Britain, France, They've transformed what they have relatively quiet provinces of the Ottoman Empire into some least stable and intentionally explosive states in the world. I mean, think about it. Palestine, Israel, Lebanon, Syria, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Iraq, Iran, Egypt. Think about it. So the plan calls for Israel to work closely with Turkey and Jordan to contain, destabilize, and roll back some of the most dangerous threats out there, most notably Syria. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if Syria is the most dangerous threat out there. But most important, understandably, that Israel has an interest supporting diplomatically, military, and operational Turkey and Jordan's actions against Syria, such as securing the tribal alliances with Arab tribes that cross into the Syrian territory and are hostile to the Syrian ruling elite. This is precisely what's happening now in Syria with their Arab tribes. Israel, as a settler state established in Palestine by the United Nations mandate, of course takes its cues from the global elite. It would not, without their continued support, be able to maintain the harmony in the Middle East. Think about it. It's a tricky situation over there, folks. Now, what does victory against ISIS mean? Does victory against ISIS mean destroying it like Adolf Hitler's SS troops? I don't know. Does it mean going to that level? He says he wants to totally destroy them. I don't think you could just go in and fight, because it's almost like a drug dealer. You can bring down a drug dealer on the corner, and guess what? Somebody's going to be in there to fill their spot later. So they had this Princeton McCormick professor come out, and he talked to Breitbart about victory against ISIS and what it means to be destroyed. He says, let me tell you what victory looks like. ISIS is decimated. It is left in precisely the shape in which left Hitler's allegedly invincible SS in 45. That's what this George McCormick said from Princeton. Those leaders are not sent to their eternal reward in fighting, are hunted down and tried against humanity for their crimes against humanity, just like the SS. Displaced Christians and other victims of the IS barbarism are returned to their lands and homes they live in peace and security. He says that's what it looks like. Peace looks like. Victory looks like. And his comments come after Obama's remarks last week of his plan to take ISIS, and he never really articulated what the end might look like. And so George is stepping up and saying, this is what the end needs to look like. We need to go in there and basically treat ISIS as we treated Germany in 45. We need to go in there and annihilate them, destroy them, and then afterwards hunt down them at once for their barbarism. But I don't think you can compare ISIS to SS. SS was not basically a theology, even though they were into the satanic stuff. They were into the, predicting the future and what is it? They're not a religious philosophy. They're not driven. They're not extremists like these Muslim extremists are. So I think you have to handle them differently. And I don't know if George is on point there. But, one of the biggest concerns here with Syria is just the legal justification. I cannot speak today, and I need to get on my A game, folks. President Obama is pretty sure he has domestic legal authority to strike Syria. According to him, he has authority to do whatever he wants. We've heard it before. But he has no explanation yet as to why a strike would comfort or conform with the international law that's out there. He can't pull this card that I'm the president and I have the legal authority and nobody's going to question him like he does to us here in the United States. The White House has an answer for the critics who want to know how Obama's administration will justify striking ISIS inside a sovereign state like Syria. If and when they actually do, and will come to legal justification. Obama has explained at length why he believes he has a domestic legal justification for airstrikes in Syria, and they've claimed congressional authority because of the 2001 authorization for use of force against the perpetrators of 9/11. He's using that as the basis for going into Syria and hunting down ISIS. But the administration has said almost nothing about the airstrikes in Syria. They weren't invited in. It would be in violation of international law. Iraq, we were invited in. Syria doesn't want us near there. In the war against ISIS, a non-state actor operating inside two sovereign states, Obama has been relying on the Iraqi government with their invitation to come in there and kick ISIS out. But, you're going to be hard-pressed to see that type of invitation coming from Syria. Obama is trying to work through several legal channels, and he's trying to come up with some way to basically sit out there and say, hey, this is our legal justifications. But many experts are upset with them. They're saying you just can't do this. He just because he is a president doesn't give him the authority, because he's the commander-in-chief, to go in and take these protections or actions against Syrian people, against the Syrian country. He's trying to claim that it's to protect us, but Syria is not doing anything to us. ISIS is going in there and fighting Syria. Syria doesn't want ISIS there. It's not like they're harboring them like the Taliban was over in Afghanistan. But this Maria Harf, with the State Department, she's saying, hey, we're going in there for self-defense. What self-defense? What have the Syrian people done to us? I think they're going in there for the Arabic pipeline issue there. Call me crazy. If they try to invoke the self-defense as justification, they would likely have to contradict themselves, because we just look at Ukraine. We got all upset when the Russians went into the Ukraine over this whole Crimea thing. Isn't that essentially what we would be doing? We're going into Syria for our agenda. Russia went into the Ukraine for their agenda, which was to take back Crimea. Now, Bashar al-Assad's regime is saying, hey, we're willing to work with the military fighters inside Syria to fight ISIS, although they haven't been contacted. And America wants to have nothing to do with him. Now, this Assad guy, he's not a good guy. He's a bad guy. I get that. But the problem is he any worse than these extremist elements of al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, and ISIS? I think not. Now, some other possible legal justification for it is they can invoke the same justification it now is using to explain the ISIS war on domestic legal grounds. The principle that war against al-Qaeda is an ongoing armed conflict, and we have to go to after ISIS wherever we can. They can try to pursue a UN Security Council resolution, but good luck there. Most people aren't going to accept it or buy into it. So we don't have a lot of options out there. So what will Obama do? Will he say, screw the legal community? I don't need international law. I don't need international approval. I have the authority because I'm the president of the United States, and I'm going into Syria to protect my people. We'll soon find out. I'll be right back. Hey, everybody, this is Frankie, and I'm here today to introduce Longevity. It's a great nutritional supplement to anybody that's eating right or not eating right. I take supplements on a regular basis, and Longevity cannot be beat, especially at some of the great price points. So go to theroguegrant.com or theuncensoredreport.com and click on shop. Go down to Longevity, click on it, and you'll be helping out the operations of the station so that we can continue to bring you a fresh perspective on alternative news. Longevity, check it out today. Hey everybody, get some of this great apparel from theroguegrant.com or the Uncensored Report or thevintagescoop.com. We have hats, shirts, coffee mugs. They say educate, inspire, and change. Or for my Scoop fans, it'll say the Venice Scoop, Sarasota Scoop, etc. Help me with this operation so I can continue to get a fresh perspective on the news out to the masses. Thanks a lot, and have a great day. Just go to my website and click on the icon. All right, folks, we're going to get back and cover one more thing on the Middle East, and it's involving Benghazi and some news that came out yesterday involving, Hillary Clinton, the one that looks to be like the Democrat presidential nominee if she continues to go in the direction she's going in now. But will she be hit with roadblocks such as this, what the Daily Signal's putting out? And it's in regards to the Clinton State Department official revealing that they allegedly went in and went through all the documents on Benghazi before handing them over. This chief of staff was allegedly there in this after-hours rendezvous where they went through and basically went through all the damaging documents before they could be turned over to the Accounting Review Board. It was investigating the security lapse around the September 11th, 2012 terrorist attacks on Benghazi. So you have that. That story's coming out. This guy Maxwell, he said, hey, look, I went down there. I saw some people from the State Department. I saw Hillary's people there basically rummaging through the documents, and I had concerns with it. Next thing he knows, he's being brought up and for disciplinary issues and being treated as the scapegoat in the whole situation. He says it was the weekend document session was held in the basement of the State Department's Foggy Bottom headquarters. So you have them going through that. You have the new revelations that came out with these 5 guys, 3 of which are named, stating, hey, we were told to stand down. And if we were allowed to go when we first knew that the incident was taking place, Stevenson would be alive today. So, in the words of Hillary Clinton, what difference does it make? It makes a hell of a lot of difference here, Hillary. And we need to continue the fight to keep her out of the White House. We don't need 4 or 8 more years of somebody like Obama. But I tell you what, we're screwed any way we look at it. All these politicians are the same. They're out for their own self-interest, for their special interest, and not for ours as the American people, unfortunately. Now let's hop over to Russia. And we got Washington's war against them. They got new sanctions. We just announced them, I think, yesterday or the day before. Europe and Washington announced them. But do they make sense? Do they make sense, or are they just merely economic measures taken against Russia? You got these new sanctions, as I said. They don't make economic sense. They make some economic sense, but they don't make sense in terms of being retaliatory. Just it's more of political posturing. I would be surprised if Russian oil and military industries were dependent upon European capital markets in a meaningful way. Such dependence would indicate a failure in Russia's strategic thinking, but I don't think they are. I think they'll cut off the spigots and not have any issue with it, and the people that will have an issue is going to be Western Europe. Russian companies should be able to secure adequate financing through Russian banks or other sources. Foreign loans if needed. They can borrow from China. If critical Russian industries are dependent on European capital markets, the sanctions will help Russia by forcing them to end their debilitating dependence on these Western countries. And it's fairly obvious Russia should not be dependent on the West anymore. But the real question here is the purpose of the sanctions. The purpose of the sanctions is to break up and undermine Europe's economic and political relationship with Russia. That's what the United States wants. When international relations are intentionally undermined, war cannot be the result. Washington will continue to push sanctions against Russia until Russia shows Europe that there's a heavy cost associated with being Washington's tool. Russia, these sanctions aren't doing anything to them. They're out there buying petrol. If anything, I think economically it's impacting the West more. They're now just put that trade through with China, and they're not using the dollar. That's impacting us financially. The real danger to Russia is the continuation of its low-key, moderate response to the sanctions. And this is a response that's encouraging the West to issue more sanctions. What Russia probably needs to do is step up to Europe and say, hey, these sanctions are going to be a serious cost to you. You know, what would happen if they stopped selling to the U.S. Their rocket engines, which we rely on for our U.S. satellites? We won't be able to make them on our own for another 6 years. How about if the Russian government, if they worried so much about losing the earnings from gas and rocket engine sales, look, Europe cannot do without the gas that they're getting from Russia. And if Russia were to cut off that spigot, they would jump out of the sanctions arena. They would no longer participate in it. So they would not lose gas revenue. Unfortunately, for the West, the Western countries of Europe, they're too reliant on it. And I remember from my when I lived in Italy, they were just shut off temporarily. I can't remember what the issue was. Gas prices soared. It was tough on the economy. So the only people that are going to be hurt here from this sanctions is probably going to be Western Europe in a big way. So what do we do here? Washington is in the position to exploit the tensions between Russian power groups. You know, Russia's thinking the Cold War ended with the collapse of the Soviet Union, opened herself up to the West, and which she should have never done. Russia's government trusted the West, and it resulted in gullibility. The West was able to purchase numerous allies among the Russian elites, and they essentially were screwed over by the West. One would think that by now the Putin government would recognize the danger and arrest the main elements of the fifth column. If Putin does not take the steps, this means either that Putin does not recognize the extent of the threat or his government lacks the power to protect Russia from internal threats. It's clear that Putin has not achieved any respite for the government from the West propaganda and the economic assault by refusing to defend the Donbass area from Ukraine. So why doesn't he just go in there? It's not helping him to stand back. All Putin achieved is to open himself up for criticism from his supporters back in Russia. The European politicians and elites are so deeply in Washington pockets that Putin has little chance of courting Europe with Russian show of goodwill. I've never believed this strategy could work. He would have been better off going into Ukraine and just taking those other regions. If China sits on the sidelines, China will be the next isolated target, will receive the same treatment. Washington intends to defeat both countries, either through internal dissent or through war. Think about it. The U.S. economy is now dependent on looting and plundering, and Washington's hegemony is essentially to this corrupted form of capitalism. Okay, we're going to be right back after this commercial message. Check out My Patriot Supply. They got the straw there. That straw is great. I tell you what, folks, you can go out and basically, if we're in a critical situation and there's a massive hurricane, there's no water, guess what? You use these straws, the life straw, out there in the pond, and it cleans out all the water and gets you filtered water. How can you beat it? Check it out. Check the product and much more, and help support the operations at theuncensoredreport.com. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit now about the spying in the intelligence community. How it was supposed to be gutted, and we're supposed to get back some of our rights and privacy. But is it happening? You know, you have the current gutted version of the USA Freedom Act, which will only serve to legalize the current illegal surveillance that's going on now against us civilians, us citizens of the United States. It will only continue to the government will only continue to have the zeal for collecting American personal information without regard to our cost, to efficacy, to legality, or public support necessities that Congress act to protect the rights of the residents across the United States and around the globe. This whole campaign they just extended basically the privacy, the rights of the government to come in and spy on us for 90 days. Obama has done nothing. This whole USA Freedom Act that they're trying to pass now, which they claim will limit the government spying on us, ability to spy on us, is not the substantive reform originally envisioned or supported by the public. It's a farce. The legislation now threatens to embolden the same violations it alleges to deter and has numerous ambiguities and is ripe with abuse, just like the Patriot Act. This act essentially legalizes currently illegal surveillance activities, folks. It grants immunity to corporations that collaborate to violate our privacy rights. It reauthorizes the Patriot Act for another 2.5 years. And it fails to reform EO 12333. So how is this helping us? And they're slipping it by and nobody's saying a word. They're hoping that we will all be asleep while they do this. And they'll continue to spy on us, continue to take away our rights. We should be concerned, folks. How about this Senator Coburn? I appreciate what he's trying to do, but I think that's another issue that's just going to blow up. He's calling for a constitutional convention, which may call for dangerous consequences. Senator Tom Corbin, he's out of Oklahoma. He's a Republican, and he announced that he wants the states to hold a constitutional convention. He wants to add a balanced budget amendment to the U.S. Constitution. That's a good thing, right? He would also like to have the CONCON add an amendment mandating term limits for members of Congress. He thinks that'll do something, even though it hasn't done anything for the presidency. Basically, these new proposals are fraught with dangers. He should consider that term limits for the office of the president have been in place since 1951. As a result, Bill Clinton served only 8 years. George Bush, 8 years. Barack Obama, 8 years. There are some Americans who applaud Clinton and Bush to Obama parade because it brought in change. He went from Clinton to change to Bush and then change back to Obama. Different philosophies, different agendas. But it certainly didn't lead to an end of deficits by any means, and I covered that just yesterday. The main change that comes with term limits is it forces one president to exit and a new one to enter. All that changes is the name of the occupant in the White House. Real change will only occur if the voting public were better informed and not captive by the phony claim that the top Democrats are different from top Republicans. They're all the same. They're all the same, folks. They might speak a different game, but they're basically all the same. The senator doesn't seem to realize, too, that the CONCON could cancel the entire Constitution. That's what happened in 1787, when the only CONCON in our nation's history exceeded its mandate to revise the Articles of Confederation. It produced the United States Constitution. The CONCON cannot be limited. It could abolish our Bill of Rights. Is that something we want? Cancel term limits on the president's office. Obama would love that. Destroy numerous limitations on federal power. So before he brings this up, he needs to realize that you cannot limit the CONCON. You know, with this Coburn, his proposal for a balanced budget amendment invites a question. Why should anyone expect current leaders to obey an amendment when they already cavalierly disobey or ignore many of the provisions that are already present in the existing Constitution? Even beyond never answered questions, there are several proposed BBAs that are full of loopholes. So while we can sit here and applaud the senator's intentions, they're praiseworthy, his years of service in Congress, we have to disagree with him. His call for a CONCON, term limits, don't bring about the real change that he will want, but it opens us up to huge liabilities, huge changes to our rights, to our Constitution. The balanced budget amendment would also be so full of loopholes it would be worthless. That's what makes this CONCOM enormously dangerous. The real change leads to educating the electorate. There's no way outside of that. And the only society doing this is basically the John Birch Society. They're out there trying to make that change out there, folks. All right, we'll be right back.
Is your money manager giving you safety and security? Wouldn't you like to make your money work harder for you? Then you should consider joining philsgang.com, where thousands of individual investors have successfully profited.
This year I'm up 60% on my portfolio. Following your system has been fantastic. I've been with you for about a month and a half now, and I'm already up 7%.
I've been in the business for a long time, and you're really one of the best I've ever heard.
Well, I just want to let you know what a great teacher you are.
For over a decade, philsgang.com's Phil Grandy and Donald Cogswell have been teaching, coaching, and investing right along with all Phil's Gang members.
I want to thank Donnie for market wrap. I bought 2,500 shares of AUI and sold it this morning at $820 profit.
Why not join thousands of satisfied Phil's Gang customers today? Go to philsgang.com, philsgang.com, or call 877-600-4264. That's 877-600-4264. Call today.
Okay, folks, I'm back. Sorry, I just feel so off my game this morning. I don't know if it's because I got a million things going on in my head with all the stuff I have to do or what. So for that, I apologize. Now we're going to talk a little bit about Agenda 21 because people are always asking, what's Agenda 21? I hear a lot about Agenda 21. How's it being implemented? What's this all about? Should I be concerned? And yes, you should be concerned. China's already implementing it basically with their ghost towns. Basically they're saying build it and they shall come. That's the attitude they've had. And this is something the America should avoid like the plague. As this is rampaging through Iraq and Syria, Ebola is on the loose and the flames of civil discontent are spreading throughout the United States. We're sitting at a crossroads. What do we do? There's some in the media who believe America sits on the precipice of martial law and that World War III will follow. All signs certainly point to these fears among our elites. A question that very few seem to ask is, what will society be like if there is a World War III? What will it be like after that? Will they be ushering in this new world order? Agenda 21? China's implementing UN-based Agenda 21 policies. So it's certainly impacting daily lives there and here. Big changes will not be felt until after the United States collapses, though, or if we're conquered. If one wants to know what life will look like when that comes, they just need to look over to China and see what's happening over there because they are implementing it. China is also becoming a model for the implementation of 21, and this implementation phase is taking a new and dramatic twist through the creation of series of ghost cities. I've talked about these ghost cities before. It's crazy. They build these huge cities, larger than Sarasota, almost like Detroit, and nobody lives there. Dateline Australia estimates that as many as 10 of these cities are being built every year. We in the United States should watch this Agenda 21 canary in the mind because what it represents is basically our future. And Agenda 21 policies are in the early stages of nudging the planet into a more equitable and just new world order. That's what they think. Although 21's influence is seemingly everywhere and is completely noticed by those who are in tune with the globalization trends, the dramatic and full influence will not be fully realized until the United States has collapsed economically. Agenda 21 is basically a blueprint for post-constitutional America. So what do you think about that? When we consider that the United States has $17 trillion in deficit, an estimated $240 trillion unfounded set of liabilities such as Medicare and Social Security, and the estimated derivatives debt American taxpayers will be forced to assume in the bailouts this derivative debt if the economy collapses. It's estimated to be between quadrillion to $1.5 quadrillion dollars. So what do you think about that? Are you ready to take on that debt? What will it bring our world to? Will we start to look like this Agenda 21 implementation? It's being implemented in China at breakneck speeds. It's coming under stealth and deception. The Chinese government's in the process of relocating 250,000 people per week from rural farmlands to densely populated urban areas. These are the ghost towns. These are the dubbed ghost cities. Many of us have heard about them. Until this year, we didn't really know the true purpose of these ghost cities and why they were being built. I remember talking about it last year. I had no idea what was going on. But the veil's been lifted. And now it's becoming very obvious as to what the Chinese are up to. Agenda 21, folks. In the stealth, right there. In one of these ghost towns, the Chinese built nearly a deserted replica of the Paris, complete with an Eiffel Tower. I remember seeing a documentary on it. They've even leveled a range of 700 mountains, as even geography can't stand in the way of their ghost cities and their agenda. China's urban population has passed the 50% mark. We reached that milestone here in the 20s. Almost a full century before the Chinese, and our urbanization was fueled by demand for cheap labor to fill the factory jobs. The Communist China's regime touts urbanization as an engine behind China's future economic development. The Chinese protagonists are telling the masses that they must accept relocation from the rural to the urban areas because it fuels the Chinese economy of the future. And they're buying into it, and they're moving there. They don't know any better. They don't know about Agenda 21. For the past few years, people in the West were baffled as to why they were building these massive cities that could house over 1 million people, yet nobody was living there. The Chinese have essentially 65 million micro apartments in these cities. The urbanization of America took place in proportion to the number of factory jobs which were available at the time, which are all gone now. The American factory jobs back then enticed future workers to leave the farm, relocate to cities. China's taken a different approach. China's taken the build it and they will come approach. Build the cities and they will come. And you'll never believe who's over there supporting this and who they're listening to, people. It would seem that the key globalists are trying to disguise the real reason on why the Chinese government is forcibly relocating 1 million farmers per month to these ghost cities. Ask yourself, America, where have we seen this philosophical belief that rural areas should be uninhabited and that population should be herded into densely populated stack and packed cities? Make no mistake about it. The Chinese, with the backing of globalist corporations like Goldman Sachs, are engaged in full-blown Agenda 21. And, why would the Chinese be taking marching orders from people like Paulson, Strong, or Soros and company? The answer is simple. The Chinese government hopes to survive the coming bond collapse in the U.S., which would happen in mere days, weeks, or months, because they hold most of the debt in the bonds. The Chinese have undoubtedly come to the full realization that the economy will massively implode when American bonds crash. And the best way to control the people backlash is to herd them together in what's become dubbed the stack and pack, which is in their Agenda 21 cities. By moving 1 million people per month to these ghost cities, the Chinese will find that they subjugated their country will be much easier when martial law crackdown is instituted as necessitated by the economic catastrophe that's coming or that will befall them and the United States. It's also not difficult to speculate that the Chinese have made an under-the-table deal with global elite to be beta tested for this Agenda 21. Many are probably wondering, is there anything going on outside the United States which parallels the forced relocation of the population to stack and pack cities? The answer is most definitely. The days are numbered for both America, suburbs, and our rural areas. And we have people to think like Mayor Bloomberg, San Francisco City Council, the concept of transition towns, inner city developments, tax breaks, and construction. America is following suit with the Chinese style Agenda 21 policies on many fronts. And we need to step up and stop this type of activity, folks. Think about it. Martial law, economic upheaval. Would it be better just to control the masses as they're packed into these cities, as we are now? Controlling every aspect of their lives? Think about it. You know, sometimes I sit there and you don't realize until you start thinking about it, how much control the government really has over you. From food to water to electricity to gas. If you really look at how much control they have over all these aspects, they control us. We're their puppets. All right, folks, that's the show for today. Remember to catch me later on today at 4 o'clock on my live show at Phil Grandy, philsgang.com. Hopefully I'll be more awake for that one. Sorry, I just don't feel like I gave it 100% today. I got a million things on my mind this morning that I need to take care of. And we will see you either at 4 o'clock live or tomorrow. Actually, no show tomorrow. We don't do another show until Friday at 9. I got a 2-day business trip, and I cannot tape the show for over those next 2 days. So if you don't see me today at 4, I will see you Friday morning at 9. Thanks.